let me take a quick detour to show you what I mean by getting shell access to a remote system. And this is going to be our first hack, by the way. It's super easy, very simple, very straightforward. You don't really need to understand how I got there. You just need to see the end result. How we got to this end result is what all this course is about. So we're going to be breaking this down as we progress. But for now, what I'd like you to see is the end result of the root shell access. So assuming I've done my homework and my due diligence, which is again what all this course is going to be about, I found out that there is a service running on port 1524 on our target system. And I'm going now to be using a tool called Netcat. And Netcat is a networking tool that I can use to connect to any port and communicate with any port over the network. Coincidentally, the port that I'm going to be connecting to right now has the function of giving me a shell. In other words, let's say I'm connecting to port 80 normally using my web browser. Port 80 would have the function or the responsibility of serving me a website. Similarly, port 443 would have the responsibility of serving me a website over an encrypted channel. We've seen in other courses, for example, that port 21 is for FTP. So if I'm trying to connect to port 21, I will be normally connecting to an FTP server. In this particular scenario, my target on port 1524 has a shell listening. So it's not a web server, it's not an FTP server, it's a shell. And to connect to it, I'm going to be using the Netcat tool that I told you about. And we can use that by typing NC, the IP address, and the port number. And immediately, as you can see here, I get a different prompt that reads root at Metasploit. I'm going to run a few commands that we will be introduced to later on in more detail. The first one is who am I? And this is a command to tell me what user am I on the system. And I get a response saying that I am the root user, which is the most powerful user on Linux. I'm going to run another command called ifconfig, and we will be saying these commands again and again, so don't worry if you don't know what these commands are for now. And ifconfig will return to me the IP address of the system that I'm running on. And as you can see here, the IP address is 192.168.190.145. Keep that in mind because this is the IP address of my target that I'll be attacking throughout this course. And lastly, I'll run the host name command, which returns to me the computer name or the host name. And as you can see here, it's Metasploitable. In other words, I have gained shell access on the Metasploitable machine that I'm targeting. This is what we're talking about when we say we got shell. So that was just a quick detour to illustrate what shell or getting shell means, because this is a term that you will be hearing constantly throughout your career as a penetration tester or as an ethical hacker. How I got to this stage and how I discovered that there's a shell listening on port 1524 and how I connected to it, so on and so forth, is again what will this course be about. I will be breaking down all these steps as we progress throughout this course. And this, by the way, is the easiest hack that you will be ever doing, ever, hands down. It cannot get any easier than this. As a matter of fact, as we progress through this course, you will be seeing different hacks that are increasing in difficulty. Alright, I hope this clarifies what a shell means. Let's move on to the next section.